Alright, welcome back to Lesson 3, How to Make a Social Network with CodeIgnighter. I'm Rod Nelson. As you can see, I'm showing you the finished registration page. It's been up for the last couple of days. I haven't really looked to see if anybody's even tried to register. But so far, I've got everything working. It's just blah looking. Really don't care what it looks like right now. But we're going to go jump into this and I'll show you how I made this. Okay, so the first thing we need to do this registration is we need to go into our config files. So we're going to go into config and we're going to open our autoload.php. Okay. Now from last lesson we already had the form validation, the database, and the session in there, so we need them. And we also had the URL and the form in there. But what we did not have in there was CAPTCHA. Let me show you real quick what I'm talking about CAPTCHA. This little part right here where you see the funky letters in here and with all the lines in there, that is CAPTCHA. It's just a way of making sure people are human and not just using a program to register. But let's get back to this. Okay, we added in our CAPTCHA, and that's all we're actually going to need for the autoload. Okay, so next we need to create a controller for registration. So we're going to go in and we're going to create our registration.php controller. Now, like I said before, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on showing you how to make controllers again. So we're just going to set up our registration controller and extend the CI controller. So the next thing we need to do is CAPTCHA requires some values. So we're going to say vals equals array. So we're going to be setting this all into one array. What it needs is it needs the image path, the image URL, the image width, the image height, and the expiration. We're just setting the image path to .captcha, and then we're going to set our URL to base URL CAPTCHA, and we're going to set our image width to 275, our height to 50, and our expiration to 7,200, which, as you can see from my stuff here, I've got written 2 hours. So, okay, now the next thing we need to do is we need to set up an array for our months. So all I'm doing is just, I started out making an array, 1 through 12, and then put all 12 months in there. Pretty simple. Now, what we need to do next is set up the days. So what we're going to do is we're just setting up this exclude days array to make sure we don't get the same number twice. So we're going to go for string x equals 1 and semicolon because we got to have that in there for, and then we're going to x is less than or equal to 31. We're going to run this, and each time it runs through we're going to increase x. Okay, then we're going to say if it's already in the array, then it's x excluded days. This will make a little more sense later, and then all we're going to do is set days sub x equals string x. So we're just going to set an array more or less from 1 to 30 or 1 to 31. It's going to have 1 to 31 for each one in there. So now we're just going to set up our exclude years array, or to an array, a blank array, and we're just going to say if x equals date year minus 18. So in other words, they need to be 18 years old to get on my site. If you're not 18, you're not going to get on the site. If you want to change this, just change it to how old you want them to be. If you want them to be anyone, just leave it to date Y. Okay, and then we're going backwards 100 years. Really don't need to, but big deal. So then we're just going to decrease it each time. And now we're just going to say that if it's in the array, then we'd exclude them. Since there's nothing in that array, we're not going to be excluding anything, but it's just kind of a catch-all. Anyway, then we'll set the years sub x equals string x. So again, we're setting these years. We're setting 100 of them technically. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set our data. We're just setting our string data years to years. We're going to set our string data day to days. And then we're going to set our cap, which is our CAPTCHA. We're just going to create CAPTCHA vals. This is part of the CAPTCHA program, or the CAPTCHA helper. So we're going to create that. Then we're going to set our title, our description, our keywords, and our main content, which is registration/registration form. And then we're going to load the view, which is in the includes directory, and it's the login template that we're using for our template. And we're also sending all the above data in there. Okay. Now, the next function we need to create is this create member. This is what's going to allow us to make sure the member, or we'll set everything for the member. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set an expiration equals time, which is the time now, minus 7200, which is 2 hours. Okay, we're going to query our CAPTCHA database. We're just going to say delete from CAPTCHA where CAPTCHA time, and then we're going to use this expiration. Okay, so if it's older than 2 hours, it gets deleted. Okay, and then we're going to go SQL equals select count as count from CAPTCHA where word equals question mark and IP equals. So in other words, it's going to look for that word, and it's also going to check your IP. So the IP has to match, and so does the word that you input. And then we're going to set our binds to array, our posted CAPTCHA, and we're going to grab the IP address. And we're also going to put the expiration in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set our query. We're going to go this database query, and we're going to put our SQL here and our binds here. So this will set up one query altogether, and pretty much what it'll do is the stuff in the binds will automatically go up into these question mark spots, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we're going to say row equals query, and we're just going to go empty row. Okay. Oh, well, actually that grabs how many rows are in there, how many rows it found. Okay, and we're going to say if row count equals 0, then we're going to say we're going to set the message to username check, which is going to be a box that's going to say this the text you entered did not match the CAPTCHA text. So pretty much what it's going to do is it's going to, right above the CAPTCHA, it's going to put in red this text did not enter but you'll see when we get there you will be using this variable here. Else it's just setting the form error to nothing because we didn't have an error. This is just kind of a way to weed out our errors. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set some rules for our form validation. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these rules. Okay, for our first name, we got to set the first name, and we're going to do a trim and required. And we're going to do the same for the last name. For the email, what we're going to do is we're going to trim it, require it, and then we're going to make valid email. Valid email checks to see if it's actually a valid email. And then is unique user.email, and then we're going to clean it. What this is doing is this is looking in the user database and seeing if the email is there. If it's already there, it's going to come back with an error. And we're also cleaning it so people can't put those funky characters in there that let them attack your website. Okay, and then we're going to set our username. We're going to trim and require. We're going to set our minimum length to 4 because we want them to have at least 4 letters in their username. If you want less or more, you can change that. We're going to make sure it's a unique username, and we're going to clean it again. Now the password, we're going to trim, require it, and we're going to set the minimum length again to 4, and we're going to set the maximum length to 32. So their password has to be between 4 and 32 characters. Okay, then we're just going to say password 2, which is this is where they'd type in their password a second time, and it's called password confirmation. And we're going to trim, require, and it must match password. So matches password requires it to match the password above. And then we're going to set up our CAPTCHA, and we're going to name it CAPTCHA, and we're going to trim and require it. Really probably don't need the trim in there, but it don't seem to ever throw an error, so I'm leaving it the way it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say if this form validation run equals false, it's going to kick you back to index. So if any of these trip, if you don't put a first name in, you don't put a last name in, you don't put anything in, or you put an invalid email, or the email's already in type of thing, or your password's too short or too long, or the username's too short, passwords don't match, CAPTCHA's wrong. This is all we're doing. So if any of these trip, so if any of these come up false, our form validation run will come up false, and it will send the errors into our view. Okay, so otherwise, if it is good, we're going to load this load model registration model, which we're going to be creating here in a little bit. And then we're going to say this registration model create member. So in the model, there's a function called create member. Okay, when it comes back from that, we're going to redirect it to the login index, because the person they won't be logged in, but their account will be created and they can log in. And that is it for the controller. Okay, so we need to go into our model directory, and we're going to create the registration model. Okay, once we got that created, we're going to set it up in its class like usual and extend the CI model. We're going to create the function called createMember. Now, we're going to go new member insert data equals array. So we're going to create an array, and what we're doing is we're just grabbing each of the pieces from the form, which we will be seeing next, and we're just grabbing this input post, which is what they typed in, and we're just grabbing each of the pieces from that. And then the other thing that's really different is the password. We're MD5ing it, which is encrypting it so that even we can't read it. It's just the month, day, and year, their birthday that you see in the form. We're automatically setting the level to 1. I had this set up differently originally. I used email to recreate the account, but since the website I'm on right now don't allow me to use email that way, I'm not going to show you how to do it until I get it on a different thing. I'll probably do it after everything's done. And then we're going to be doing a create on date. I believe both of these here need to be created inside the database. We may have put level in there before, but the created on date is just a date in your database. So pretty much we're going to be able to use it later for like saying this user's been a member for 3 hours, or they've been in however long, well, let's say 1 day or 0 days, depending on how long ago they registered. So our next thing we're going to do is we're going to insert this into the database. So we're going to say string insert equals this database. We're going to use the insert command, and we're inserting that into the user database. And we're sending all the data that we set up in the array above into the database. And then we need to return insert, and that will return us back to our registration.php up in the controller, and then it'll kick us to the proper page. Okay, that is it for the model. Next, I'm going to show you how to use the form, or set up the form. Alright, so now that we have the model done, we need to create the view for the registration form. So, we're going to open up our views, and we're going to create a directory called registration. And inside there, we're going to create the registration form.php. Now, the registration form.php is pretty simple. We just do a few things that you might not have used before. It's just the way I get it stuff to line up and make it look better. First, we're gonna open up our PHP tag, and I just decided to echo all this stuff. It's so much easier than kicking in and out of tags. It's just so. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go form field set registration. That's the little circle at the top that we set for the name. Okay, and then we're gonna echo out a UL. We're gonna set this to class errors. That's I believe you've seen it in the last lesson when we did login. If you followed our the CSS, you'll notice that we did create the errors, and it's just a red. Okay, and then we're going to echo any errors that come from last time. So if there was errors, it'll reprint the form with the errors. If there's no errors, then it'll be blank. Okay, and then we're just closing that UL, and then we're going to go form open, and it's going to go to registration create member. So it's going to be the registration controller and the create member function. Okay, now we're going to set up a table, and this will just help everything line up. I'm not going to go through each of these table commands. I'm just going to go through the form commands themselves. So first thing we want to do is for the first name, we're going to set a form label, first name, and we're just going to set it the first underscore name. This ain't going to mess up anything that we already have set up, so it'll work just fine. So we're just going to say, then we're going to go form, input, first name. We're going to set the value to first name so that if we did happen to come back through, oh, bam, there, their first name's still there. They don't have to retype everything. Now, last name's the same, email is the same, username is the same. Now, what I had to do here for doing the sex is obviously I had to echo the sex, and then we had to do some little bit of the table, and then we're setting the label for male, and we're setting form radio, and we're setting sex male true. So in other words, that little circle's clicked, then it's true. And then we do the same for female, except for, of course, we use an F instead of an M. Okay, now this is where our month and days and years stuff come in. We're using form drop down, and we're setting our month, our day, and our year. And our month starts with a 1, or will be at the 1, so it'll be at January, and our day is at 1, which would be, obviously the first of the month, and then our year just automatically, wherever it comes, I don't care where it sits. If you want to set a default, you can set the default year if you want, and it'll automatically show that as the default. With the drop down menus, I have not found a way to set them back the way they were, so I don't believe that does. But anyway, now because we're using HTML5, we can do form password, and this will set it with password, and it'll put the stars over it. There are other ones we can use other ones too, but right now we're not going to use them. Okay, then the next thing we need to do after we close our table and do this mess here, we're going to set up our CAPTCHA code. We're going to go data equals array CAPTCHA time, so it's going to set the CAPTCHA time to the local time of the CAPTCHA when it was set. We're going to get the IP address. It just says this input IP address. It'll get the user's IP address, and then the word, which is the CAPTCHA word that we set up in our controller, and then we're gonna do a query this database insert string. We're going to insert this into the CAPTCHA directory, and we're going to send all this data. Okay, and then we're just going to go this database query, and we're going to send the query into the database. So it should be able to write that into the database with no problem. And then we're just going to we're going to put in our submit the letters above. And then we're going to have a submit button, which is form submit. Submit's just setting it to a submit button, and the actual text that'll be on the button is create account. We're going to close our form, then we're going to close our form field set, and then I just put a couple returns in there just because I can. And that is actually all we need. I'm just going to show you quick how to do the database for CAPTCHA. Okay, so here we are on CodeIgniter's home page, which is now lslabs.com/CodeIgniter. But what we're going to do here quick is we're going to go in and we're going to skim the manual. And of course my internet's going to be slow. Okay, now the table of contents is here. I'm sure you've been on the website and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to open the CAPTCHA helper. And what we need to do is come down here to right here. We're going to add the database. Pretty much what you can do is go into your database program and you can enter a command and you can just copy this whole unit right here. And then this will create your CAPTCHA table. I'm not actually going to show you how to do the CAPTCHA table, but this will help you set up your CAPTCHA table by yourself, and then you don't have to worry about it. And if you do want more information on the CAPTCHA helper, you can obviously come to the website and check it out. If you still have questions afterwards, feel free to ask me. I'm more than willing to help. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody that does and get you a decent answer. Alright, so as you can see, we're here at the login screen, and we're going to go to the registration screen. Okay, now it obviously keeps my information because I've got other stuff running, but I'm going to delete the username, delete the password. Now, this is just, as you've seen, everything we set up in the database. You can see here we get all our months. We have all 31 days, so we can use all 31 days of the month. And we start at 1995 and go backwards, all the way back to 1913. If there's anybody older than that that's on here, they'd kind of be surprised. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're just going to hit create account right now with everything blank. Now, this is what I was talking about by the errors. As you see, it lists out all the errors. And, of course, it still knows I have a program that's reinserting this stuff, but it'll give me an error for everything, obviously, except for the date, because there's already a date set. And it's not going to give me anything for the sex, because the sex is just set to female for some reason. I don't know why it auto goes to female, but anyway, that's pretty much it for what we're going to see. Once you go through the registration form, I've already got mine in there, but you fill out the registration form and it'll just tell you that you're registered. It'll take you back to the login screen. You log in and it'll take you back to the screen that we were at before. Of course, right now you can just type in the link and get right to the page because we don't have nothing in there, but we will be at the next lesson. We'll be working with forgot password, and after we're done with forgot password, we will start working on stuff like keeping people from just logging directly into URLs and stuff like that, so they can't just get to the front page without already having their cookie saved or whatever. But that'll be it for this lesson.